You're called to make sure that you put your needs in front of that of the patient. And I think that's lost a lot with this generation, to be very honest with you. And, maybe that hurts some feelings, and sorry, I'm just going to call out the facts. When we're starting to interview people, the first thing they talk about is work-life balance. When I was coming through, the first thing I talked about was, gosh, how many cases can I do? What a great experience can I do? How many people can I take care of? At the bottom line, if you're there just to have a great lifestyle and a great life, well, good for you, but there are a lot of patients are not going to be taken care of.
Welcome to How I Doctor, where we're bringing joy back to medicine. My guest today is Dr. Greg Murphy, Republican Congressman for North Carolina's 3rd District. He's now in his 4th term in Congress, after serving in the North Carolina House before that. Dr. Murphy is a practicing urologist and notably the only physician in Congress who still actively sees patients. Before politics, he's worn many clinical hats: affiliate professor, president of his urology group, and chief of staff at Vidant Medical Center. He's also done medical mission work, including post-earthquake relief in Haiti in 2010, something I also had the chance to do, and which truly remains one of the most meaningful experiences of my career. I first connected with Congressman Murphy after he made some comments on social media about younger physicians that sparked quite a bit of debate. We'll get into that today. I want to thank him for reaching out and being willing to have a conversation, especially at a time when everything is social media clips and sound bites and dunking on each other. We may not agree on everything, but I think we actually both share a deep belief in the medical profession and the practice of medicine and its future. Congressman Greg Murphy, welcome to How I Doctor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll get into the tweet in a moment, but you're a pretty rare breed. You're a physician congressman who's still practicing, seeing patients. Give me like the 60-second version of why you first started practicing and then how you decided to make the jump into public office.
I've been practicing for a long time. We have a very poor part of Eastern North Carolina, but we're a high-level tertiary care center. So we see a lot of patients from all over Eastern North Carolina. I didn't go into politics on purpose. I didn't raise my hand. Actually, my state house member in 2015 resigned in the middle of his term, and I got approached to, hey, would you like to do this? And I honestly said no. It wasn't until our state medical society came in and said, look, we don't have a single physician in the North Carolina General Assembly. In fact, the person in charge of health policy for the state house was a bail bondsman who hated doctors and hospitals. And so, we're called to serve. And so I said, yes, I do it. But I'm at the same time, I'm still running a practice. I'm still a very busy surgeon. I had to basically put office hours into the evening and sometimes on Saturdays to continue to do both.
Wow. Well, thank you for representing physicians and continuing to practice. I always find that practicing always influences the way I see the world and understand things on a leadership level as well.
Sure, they do. I practice because I love what I do. I think my patients appreciate it. And it also, and I don't want to say most importantly, but it also gives me a frame of reference when I'm talking to other physicians because, when you get to be somebody who's not practicing anymore, you lose a little bit of credibility. That's just a fact. And then I can also, when talking with my colleagues, say, look, I just saw this in the operating room, or I just had colleagues tell me this is going on with their practice, et cetera. I think it brings a lot of credibility. I can't get paid. I have to do it for free. But I've done, as you mentioned, a lot of pro bono work over the last 30 plus years, and it's meaningful work. We need urologists, and I've been ringing this bell for 15 years that we're going to come into a huge critical shortage, and we're right in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
And sadly enough, not much was done about it to try to alleviate it. So I'm fulfilling a need. They always ask me, can I give them more days to see patients and operate? And I kind of got this other gig going on too, so it's a little hard to do.
Yeah, Congressman, you've practiced 35 years. What is the number one thing that's more challenging about practicing today than it was when you started in the 90s?
The bureaucracy. And it's only, I was in a practice, we started out as 4, and we had 1.5 insurance people. And now I had to resign from my practice to be in Congress. I had to resign, and we were private at that point in time. And I turned to my next person and kind of in line to run the practice and said, look, I'm happy to help you. Boom, boom, boom. And he said, no, I don't want to work this hard doing the administrative burden. We're going to go be assimilated by the hospital. I couldn't blame him. We had gone almost, I think it was 3 out of the last 8 quarters at that point in time where we hardly even got any paycheck. And so I couldn't blame him, but it broke my heart because I think that the whole quandary of employed physicians versus those who work for themselves, it's different. It's very different. You see more patients, you pick up the phone and say, if a doctor calls you to see a patient, you say, hey, can I see it today? Or do you want me to see them today or tomorrow versus, hey, well, here, talk to the scheduler. It's a different ethos, if you will. And so I think this is one of the problems that is facing medicine today.
It's kind of shocking to hear a congressman saying that because that is the exact same story I hear from so many people. My father's a physician in private practice for 40 years. He's retiring this year because of the bureaucracy and the red tape, but was had tons of pressure to be acquired by the health system as well. Given all of these challenges, do you think physicians, the medical profession, are at risk of going extinct?
Well, I think not the medical profession, but the medical profession as we know it is very much on the pathway to extinction. Private practice, in my opinion, which has been the bulk, the foundation of how American medicine has been, is very much at risk. The ACA, and people can. There were some good things in the ACA. There were also some very bad things in the ACA. In some ways, it's almost explicitly written to drive private practice out of business, to try to push us all into a single payer, one huge conglomerated system, which, in my opinion, is horrible for patient care. But this is the thing that we're facing right now. And so I don't think medicine will be extinct, but absolutely the way we have practiced and the attention to patient care is on the way out.
I think there are a lot of younger physicians who don't even know the way that maybe your generation was able to practice. That, like you said, you're able to. Oh, a colleague needs you to see a patient. Hey, I'll squeeze him in today. The joys of controlling your own schedule and having the autonomy to say, let's just do this today. I'll get him in.
Yep. It is sad, to be very honest with you. It's sad to that point because if I had to see a patient, I just tell the scheduler to add him on, and now it has to go before a committee. But whether the format of your schedule has to change, and it just drives me insane. And in some ways, it buffers the doctor, say, well, I don't have to see that patient. Sorry, you signed up to be a doctor. And that means some sacrifices. And if it means having to work a few minutes longer or having to squeeze somebody else in, you got to remember why you're there. It's because of the patient. And we're getting away from that.
Well, that's a great segue. I think I understand your point of view a little bit better. We originally connected because of your social media post about, younger physicians. I'll just read some of what you said. So troublesome to see so many posts about young doctors complaining about how hard the job is. They need to rethink their profession. Congressman, tell me straight up, do you think the biggest threat to the future of medicine is young doctors not working hard enough?
I wouldn't say the biggest threat, but if generational issue that we're having, that so many of this new generation comes out of college and they can't hack it in 2 years. And so they get fired and it's moved over. It's a generational problem. I'm not saying it's anything to go with medicine, but we're having a problem with our medical schools. We have a problem with the admissions process. We have a problem with the curriculum. We have a problem of setting expectations. Look, let's pick another pick another profession. And this is a profession. It's not a job. It's a profession that you are called on to take care of other individuals. Can you pick anything else with a more lofty goal of taking care of other people when they're most vulnerable? They're just diagnosed with cancer, or God forbid, they're in pain from a kidney stone, or they've ruptured their appendix. You are in a position of true honor, and you're called to sacrifice. You're called to make sure that you put your needs in front of that of the patient. And I think that's lost a lot with this generation, to be very honest with you. And, maybe that hurts some feelings, and sorry, I'm just going to call out the facts. When we're starting to interview people, the first thing they talk about is work-life balance. When I was coming through, the first thing I talked about was, gosh, how many cases can I do? What a great experience can I do? How many people can I take care of? At the bottom line, if you're there just to have a great lifestyle and a great life, well, good for you. But there are a lot of patients are not going to be taken care of. So it's an area of great tension, and I hear it. Believe me, I hear it from so many professors. Now I know that some people are going to throw hate on me for saying this, but just too bad. Some professors now that they're trying so hard to get hard work, dedicated work out of people. And I'll take you back. I'll take you back to when this all started. There were two residents at Harvard who, because they made some mistakes, were suing and saying it was because they were working too hard. Well, those two people never even made it out of residency, never made it out of their training program. So I'm sorry, I think it really had to do more with them than their training. Yes, were things too hard when I was going through? Yes, I would get a number on my pager, and I know I'd be up for most of 3 days because I was going out and harvesting organs, coming back, transplanting them, et cetera, et cetera. So the pendulum needed to swing. But with the work hour limitations and the fact that, residents now have to say, sorry, my time's up in the middle of a case, doesn't teach ownership. It teaches you to look at the clock, and that's how you determine your patient care. It's a real challenge for young physicians and medical students and residents these days. How do they fight that? If you look at their ability to meet certain goals that people come out of residency, case numbers, et cetera, it is well versed right now that the experience level and the competency level is not that where it should be because of work hour limitations, because of saying, hey, it's my time to be protected, et cetera, rather than staying through the case, seeing what's happened. We've turned in some ways into clock docs, not patient docs. It's very troublesome for the field of medicine.
I have to say, in some ways, I understand what you're saying.
I hope you do.
Yeah, I mean, there are obvious downsides to shift work or the resident work hour changes. The ownership, the signing out, the not seeing the patient from the beginning of their appendicitis, from presenting in the ER all the way through when they're discharged. I totally understand that, but
Yeah.
isn't there also at the same time a degradation in the quality of care you can deliver to that patient if you're up for 3 days? Like I'm sure you're an incredible surgeon, but everybody has some limit where they're more prone to mistakes, they're more prone to problems if they don't have some limitations.
Sure, and that's a rare example. But you know what? I mean, there's still plenty of times when I'm at a level 1 trauma center, and I was on primary call every fourth night for years and years, and you had to get up and work hard the next day. There is a little bit, and people are saying, "Oh, well, just suck it up."
Suck it up, buttercup. Yeah, yeah.
Well, there is a little bit to that. You're called on the greatest profession in the world, and yeah, you're going to have to do things when you're tired. But if you're not there to do them, who's going to take care of patients? Mid-level practitioners that are absolutely needed, but do not have the experience, do not have the education to do this? Are you going to cede care of your mother, your grandmother, your wife to that kind of level of care? Ask yourself that question. What are you willing to do? And so, it is a tension. It is a tension.
Look, I'm an ER doctor. I like working hard. I haven't had a Thanksgiving off since in 13 years. I work nights and weekends. But, I think just what younger doctors are saying is, what does hard work get you in medicine these days? The system tells the doctor, yeah, sorry, I can't fit you in because my schedule, but the policy doesn't allow it. And so I think younger doctors are saying, hey, yeah, I'll do the pre-med. I'll take the MCATs. I'll study. I'll memorize more of step 1. USMLE testing, but what does that actually get me right now? I work in a system where I have less autonomy, less control. I'm arguably paid less money. I have bigger student debt. And so I guess I view it from the perspective of like, look, I think these people are committed to working hard. They wouldn't jump through all the hoops of medicine if they didn't have to. But what does that hard work get them when the system is ultimately, like you said, kind of controlling, even if they can squeeze in an extra patient that day?
Well, then you just answered the question. What does it get me? Why are you in medicine? Are you in it for you, or are you in it to take care of patients? Because if you're in it for you, oh my gosh, you could pick a much easier job, easier lifestyle, etc. There is times when you have to sacrifice for the patient. Remember, that's why you're in medicine. It's for the patient. And so, yeah, it is controlled by the system, but that doesn't mean that I don't walk up to the scheduler and say, I don't care what your format says, work this patient in because they need my expertise. So I'm not willing to give people an out on that. If you know what you're getting into, and you should know what you're getting into, this is a field of sacrifice. It's a field of you have to sacrifice, not going out with your friends. You're up there at, Friday nights, Saturday nights, studying in the library. It is a field of sacrifice for the sake of other individuals. It's not about you, it's about the patient. And yes, look, I'm not saying anything about this that I don't want people to have enjoy life. I don't want them to say, no, I hate my life, but I'm taking care of patients. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. And people should understand that. But I'm also saying that, it's, hey, it's 4 o'clock, it's time to go. Well, no, there are patients to be seen. And God, look at our physician shortage now. A lot of that is exacerbated because people are not working full time. The number one reason we have a physician shortage in this country, it's not because we're not graduating enough medical students. It's not because we don't have enough residency programs. It's because people are not working full time when they come out of medical school or residency. They're working part time. There are plenty of people that, hell, they don't even practice at all. I can pick you five that I can pick off right off my hand that live in my neighborhood that when they got through residency, they never practiced. So, I mean, gosh, why did you take up the spot of somebody in medical school and residency if you weren't going to practice? And this goes back to our medical schools. The leadership of our medical schools these days has really, I think, done a massive disservice to the future of patients because of the way they've approached medical education in the last decade.
I guess the reason, Congressman, that your tweet touched such a nerve, especially from looking through the commenters, a lot of the younger physicians, is there just so many immense challenges today. The bureaucracy is way worse than it was when you started practicing in the '90s, and so if I am sacrificing, it feels like I am sacrificing for the good of the insurance company or my hospital employer. It doesn't feel like I am sacrificing and giving that sacrifice to the patient. Like it feels wrong to me to put the blame on an individual physician and say they're complaining too much.
I think people took it the wrong way. I was more extolling them to say, look, guys, there is parts to complain about. Maybe I could have worded it better. But, look, we're in the job of taking care of patients. And believe me, there's no greater opponent for our insurance companies than in the United States Congress than one that you're looking at right now. United, I will just tell you, I do not get along well with them because I call them out for every misdeed that they do. I think some of our drug cartels are more ethical than our insurance companies.
Well, thank you for that.
Oh my God! And look, there's been no one in Congress working harder for physician payment. There's literally been no one working harder for this. And so, look, I'm busting my ass to try to help physicians out in the field, but I think it has to come back. I don't want people to say, "Oh, woe is me." You are a physician. You are in the position of honor. How many people have tried to get to that point and failed? So, I get it. There is a higher bureaucracy now, but there's also a lot easier things. So, yes, while the bureaucracy is higher, I don't know that the workload is that much different today than yesterday. It may be a different workload, and you may have to be much more. And I hate this for people. They've lost their autonomy. They've lost their saying, hey, I can do this. This is the right thing for the patient. I've decided that I have the training to do this. But it's just a different mindset. It's a different mindset.
I guess I think what you're saying is that physicians have lost some of the ownership of the patients. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So I guess the way I look at it is they're responding to the incentives that have been given to them. They don't feel like they have the autonomy or control to say, "I need this person to go to the OR right now. I need to prescribe this medicine." They are mired in prior authorizations and PBMs and step therapy and all of these challenges. And so I think chicken or the egg problem here. I could absolutely see a lot of physicians saying, well, again, what is the value of the sacrifice? Even if it's not, all about me, but just, like, oh, I work harder so that United Healthcare can make more money, so that Optum can save 5 pennies.
Well, all right. So, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But then let's just analyze what you just said.
Sure.
What is the opposite? So you don't work hard because you don't want the insurance companies to do it? Guess who gets hurt? The patient.
Of course.
The
Yeah.
patient. Yeah. So no, believe me, United Healthcare has abused its position of caring for people in this country. I think, look, I think some of those people, truth be told, ought to go to jail. I've been told that what they do is not, quote, illegal, but it sure as hell is unethical. And they have been the primary driver of this nonsense. Believe me, I face it myself. Again, this is why one reason I still practice. So I see this stuff. But then again, ask yourself, okay, you're frustrated with the system. Who are you going to take it out on? The patient? Because if you're saying, all right, well, throw my hands up, I'm done, guess who gets hurt? The patient.
Sure.
The patient.
It does feel like the human beings in the system, the patient, the doctor, the nurse, those people are the most taken advantage of by the system so that
Absolutely.
the system can extract maximum value out of the doctor and the patient's
Yeah,
illness.
absolutely. But so I would say to people coming out, then don't join a hospital practice. Go into private practice. You don't have those same kind of regards. So there is some of this that's self-inflicted.
Congressman,
So
let me
you,
just
you
ask
get
you,
the
let me just ask, sorry to interrupt you. Let me just ask you one more question specifically about that. You know, the sense is that many people cannot go into private practice, or it's more challenging because we've had Medicare cuts year over year over year, and the reimbursement for CPT codes then is going to also impact what the private insurers are paying. So, I mean,
yeah.
just moving into policy a little bit. Why does this keep happening? We keep seeing pay cuts, healthcare costs, the cost to run a practice keep going up. So maybe as an insider, can you help me understand why does this keep happening?
We've had a 30% decrease, inflation adjusted over the last 20 years because of formulas that were put in, some with the ACA. Okay, going to go back to Obamacare to doing some of this to ratchet down physician payment. And we just got through the House an eight to $9 billion change in the MEI, going down, being cuts all of a sudden to going back up. I consider that a victory. I don't consider it a win because I'm trying to get the 2025 cut obliterated. Look, I agree 100%, but there are a lot of private practices. I went out. So there's a urology group in Dallas. A good friend of mine from residency runs that group, and about a third of their income comes from CPT codes. They've had to do other things, ancillary things, which is fine to do. Remember, the ACA said that no hospitals could be owned by a physician. Guess who put that in there? Hospital Association. So these are things that I'm fighting against. And people need to realize, listening to this, I'm fighting harder than you can ever believe for physicians. But I'm also not willing to say, surrender the flag. It's woe is me. It's too hard on me to remember and remind everybody why you're there. It's for the patient. And yeah, we're going to fight like hell. But if you just throw your hands up and say the system is too bad, and leave medicine or just say I'm not doing this, who gets harmed? It's for the patient. And remember the oath that we all swore. It was about the patient. And yeah, look, the insurance industry and the government have destroyed medicine. Destroyed medicine. Yeah, we have people screaming Medicare for all. They have no damn idea how bad that would be for patient care and for them for that matter. So, yeah, I get it. I truly get it. But you can either say, look, ask yourself, why am I there? Is it for the patient I'm taking care of who's somebody's mother, somebody's child? Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Believe me, I get it. I've done all this for years. I've had to fight with insurance companies. I've had to get on the phone with people that don't know what the hell they're talking about with insurance companies because they've been denied. I've gotten the frustrations, but I don't want those frustrations to then be taken out on the patient.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, part of this podcast is to support my company Off Call. We're trying to increase transparency to try to keep physicians from leaving medicine because they understand better their pay, their workload.
Yeah.
We have advocacy organizations. We have the AMA. Every specialty has an advocacy organization, a specialty society. You've seen the inner workings. You've seen the sausage be made behind the scenes, behind closed doors. What is the disconnect here?
Well, how would you like it if people knew that Nancy Pelosi's healthcare staffer 3.5 years ago said physicians earn too much money anyway? How would people like that? Because that's a fact. And sadly enough, a lot of this has become partisan because there's one political ideology wants to drive everybody into a single payer system, everybody the same, and kill private practice. And then if you look at advocacy organizations, I think they do a lot of good things, but some of them have lost their way. They're not advocating for physicians. They're worrying about climate change. They're worrying about social justice. They're worrying about other things. Fine. If you want to do that, great. But don't do that under the guise saying you're trying to advocate for physicians. And so I've actually had to have some difficult discussions with some of our physician groups literally a week ago because of the hard work that I did and that we did in the doctor's caucus. in getting something out with an MEI fix in the House, but they flooded the Senate with a bunch of other requests undermining what we did. And so this is like, and I had a very, very, I don't want to say hostile, but it was a very challenging conversation with one of our specialty societies. And they've now finally seen, because the Senate has taken the MEI bump up out of their thing, they finally understood what I was saying to them and they've backed off. So, yeah, our societies are doing great work, but they need to actually understand who they're working for and what they're trying to do rather than get off on all these extraneous fields of justice, what they're doing.
The societies need to be working together more.
Absolutely. This is what's happened, unfortunately, over in the Senate side when you have a bunch of different physician groups that are coming at different angles. They're like, well, look, y'all can't even get your stuff together. How are we supposed to where's the unified message? And this is what I've tried to preach. We can't have people going off and doing their own, crazy little things. They're having their own proclivities, their own things that they want to fix. We actually have to come together and understand this has to be our sole cause. There's some certain formulas that kick out and say, hey, if this threshold is exceeded, CMS does utilization reviews. If you have a new code, they predict how often it's going to be used and how much this is going to cost. And if it exceeds a threshold, then the threshold puts in all these cuts. There's another legislation they're trying to get through that changes that threshold and gives us a much bigger mirror. I will tell you, I thought the last leader of CMS, she cared more about enrolling people actually in the Medicare and Medicaid system rather than just actually getting a good system that works for the people who are eligible. Dr. Oz is smart. I've had many conversations with him and scrubbed really hard things. And I think we'll actually get some true reform that's going to be actually for physicians, people who take care of patients afterwards. Your question is, why are we being beat on? Here we were just a few years ago, the heroes. We're the ones on the front lines taking care of people with COVID, saving
I had people banging pots and pans for me when I would go into my shifts in the ER.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's flipped. Well, I think people need to realize this, and this is a part of advocacy. When I was on a college board of my alma mater, I was like, part of foundation fundraising. And I said, well, great, we crank out a lot of doctors. And I said, well, we should get a lot of help from them. Doctors are horrible about giving in comparison to other groups, especially politically. And I think you've learned I speak pretty frankly. If we're not politically active, in other words, if we're not engaged with our senators, our House of Representatives on both, not only the state level, but the federal level, then this means donating. And it doesn't mean $50. It doesn't. These are how, sadly enough, the game is played. But you have attorneys that set aside so much money of theirs to give. You have business people that do the same, and physicians. Well, we think, gosh, we take care of people, whether they have a ability to pay or not. They're going to take care of us. Sadly enough, in the world of politics, that is not the case. Physicians need to be engaged, not only politically, but financially in the future of our specialty.
So in your view, the hospitals have the AHA, the payers have AHIP. Is it really just money? I mean,
That's part of the equation.
I mean, we've got a vast majority of physicians on our platform who are advocating for physician autonomy, better pay. Are there other things that physicians can do, or is it really just that we should be pooling our resources together in the way that the other parts of the health system?
Well, you look at the biggest lobby in Washington, D.C., guess what? The insurance company.
Insurers, yeah.
Guess who's right behind them?
Hospitals. Yeah.
Hospitals. And it's great to have Doctors' Day. I open my doors. I've always told my scheduler, if there's any group of physicians that comes on the Hill, wants an appointment, work them in somehow. Just work them in somehow. Because that's the only reason I'm in politics is for healthcare and medicine. Look, I could go back and earn a whole lot more money being a practicing physician.
What? You get me.
I'm 62. I could probably take a little bit more time off than I did before. But I'm doing this because I care about where we as physicians are in the future of medicine, of healthcare. We're all going to be patients one day, right?
Absolutely.
I was a patient. I had a huge pituitary tumor operated on last year. So I got flipped to the other side. But if we don't take care of our field, if we don't take care of what we know best, guess who takes care of it? People that have no damn clue. And I care more about your workforce, your ability to have a life, but also to take care of patients than anybody. but I'm also not willing to let people go and say, get excuse and excuse. If you want excuses, if that's how you're going to live, then that's not good patient care. And at the end of the day, who's going to take care of people? It's not going to be your hospital administrator. And believe me, I go toe to toe with those folks also. I look, I understand 100% of everything you're talking about because I've lived it. I was chief of staff of our big, huge medical center for 3 years, so I saw the inner workings of a hospital administration. I've run a practice. I've been at the bedside for how many years? Been in the OR for how many years? Done work abroad for how many years? So I think I have a pretty good depth and breadth of knowledge of what it means to be a physician. I'm working my ass off to stop the pre-authorization, to stop the nonsense of surprise billing, to stop all this other nonsense. But I also need to know, on the other hand, that I've got docs behind me that put the patient before everything.
My parents are getting older. They are going to need healthcare. I'm going to need healthcare. I want dedicated, caring people who are going to spend that extra 30 seconds coming up with the differential diagnosis of could they have this weird thing that I learned about I haven't seen in 20 years. The piece that I still struggle with a bit is, earlier we talked about sacrifice. Get it? This is not a profession for the weak, or there's easier ways to make money. But at the same time, we've also agreed that physician pay is getting worse. So, like, in your mind, where's the sacrifice end? Like, how sacrificial should we be? Why aren't we just accepting the pay cuts?
I don't want us to accept pay cuts. Believe me, I'm working my ass off to not do those. That's literally just the opposite. I don't think so. But what you're going to see is as we get more and more consolidation, you get pull people in with more salary than they can offer this, that, and the other stuff. But the day's going to come all of a sudden where you're getting cut if you're employed. Yeah, you're getting it in the private world. No, I'm not saying accept that at all. I'm saying do something more about it than just complaining about it. Actually do something about it. Contact your legislature, go to a fundraiser, go in and tell your story. Talk about your student loans, which is a whole different thing. That primarily, if you go back to what undergrad is charging, which is ridiculous, but what has happened to college expenses? They have skyrocketed. And there's been no impetus whatsoever on the part of college universities and presidents to control costs. But when it costs $86,000 a year to go undergrad for a private school, I mean, that's absurd. And then you get people graduating medical school debt. What's the average medical school debt now? It's like 300 to 400.
Yeah, I think it's 250 for public and maybe 275 or 300 for private. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's absurd.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. Yeah. And you go back to the primary thing is undergraduate education. It's not, look, medical school costs money. It is. It's much more expensive than law school. Law school just has to pay for classrooms. We got to pay for labs. We got to do all this other stuff. But the primary problem is undergrad. And so student loan, quote, forgiveness is not the answer because all you're doing is pushing that money onto maybe a plumber or somebody else who didn't go to school. We have to get back to the root of the problem, and that's overcharging, overgrowth of undergraduate campuses that have become, Disneyland for everybody.
Congressman, how can the physicians listening help? Is there a single change that we should organize around?
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm beating on them. I really don't, because I'm not. I'm your biggest fan. But I also want us to just remember why we're here. And you get so many hits by social media, this, that, and the other stuff. And my point was, really what made me write that thing is I just see these guys pop up on social media, out, hey, I'm a doc, but I'm out here in the Caribbean. I'm doing this, I'm doing that and everything. It's like, you've lost your way. You've lost your way. Why are you in medicine? Are you in medicine just to have wild, fancy lifestyles? If that was the case, then you picked the wrong field. And that kind of struck a nerve with me because about after the 50th time I saw it, one or the other, it just kind of honestly pissed me off. It's like, this is not about patient care. It's about you. It's about your wonderful lifestyle. Come on, guys. We have a calling. This is not just being I don't want to cast aspersions on accountants or anything, but it's not just being an accountant. It's being a physician. It's a calling. And we need to return that. and say, this sucks at times. It absolutely sucks at times. Look, I've had how many times did I have to get up in the middle of the night and go in and operate on someone who was in a drug craze in the midst of you feeling like you're not being appreciated by getting pay cuts, this, that, and the other stuff. You know what? Your patients appreciate it. And that has to stand for something.
I don't think anybody going into pre-med medical school residency thinks that they're not going to be working hard. I mean, these are highly intelligent people. They could go into tech, they could go into law. They could make a lot more money working not as demanding hours, but they get in the system and they see the system exploiting them. That to them seems like, God, am I just a sucker here?
Well, I understand that completely. I absolutely understand that. And look, we are the ones who are the bastard stepchilds. We're the ones who have been attacked the most in medicine because you see these hospital CEOs making 13, $14 million a year. I mean, hell, the new United guy made $60 million. Give me a freaking break. But I think the American public has woken up to the problems of one particular insurance company, and their stock, as my understanding, has plummeted. But look, I understand that completely. But let's use that frustration, not throw our hands up. Let's use that to provide better patient care, understand why we're in the business. It's also kind of hard when physicians cry about physician pay, when people drive around in their nice cars, et cetera, et cetera. And patients, there's a fine line between that because, most doctors still get paid pretty damn well. But I don't want us to get in the generation, gosh, of just complaining about everything. Some parts of this job suck. Some parts of it suck, and some of it is absolutely part of the job. Other parts of it are because of insurance companies, and this is where involvement. Let's take that frustration instead of just complain about it. Let's use that energy and actually do something about it.
I'll tell you something that a chief of cardiology I was talking to yesterday of one of our local hospitals said. He said, I finish my notes at 1 a.m. sometimes, but I fucking love this job. But he also said this job nearly killed me. And so I think people are willing to sacrifice. And it is an incredible feeling that I think we have all felt, being able to relieve somebody's pain, remove their tumor, fix a problem, relieve suffering in the world. I think that is a tremendous honor. And I think we all feel it. But at the same time, the system makes it challenging to afford to have children, to start a family, to buy a home as a physician. Those things, I think, make people think and start to question, is this worth it?
It's just a constant refresher. People ask you, well, do you enjoy Congress? Do you do this? Isn't this the greatest thing ever? And I say, no. Truth be told, the greatest thing ever is when I walked into a patient's room and talked to a family and said, I think grandmom's going to be okay. I got her cancer out. I think she's going to be fine. That's the greatest thing ever. But that doesn't downplay the challenges that people face. But you have to also question your mindset. Question your mindset a little bit. Are you going to look for areas to gripe about? Or are you going to say, look, part of this job sucks, but I'm here for the patients?
Congressman, before we close, I want to ask you a few questions about what you've learned since going into public service. Tell me, what's harder, taking care of patients or getting something done in Washington?
Getting something done in Washington by 10 billion times. Because remember, I have to convince 434 other people of what I want to do. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of strength. If the speaker doesn't want it, it doesn't happen. If you're chairman of the committee, I'm on Ways and Means. If he doesn't want it, it doesn't happen. So it's a lot harder in a lot of regards. Patients, taking care of patients can be challenging too. But I would say if you had to pick one harder over the other, it's definitely politics.
We hear from a lot of physicians, they share intimate personal details of their finances and what they love or hate about their jobs on our platform. Maybe can you give us something that can give physicians hope or optimism that they can feel joy again in the profession and feel like the best days of medicine are still ahead of us?
Yeah. It's funny when my staff, when I first got there, they said, what do we call you, doctor or congressman? And I said, well, think about that for a second. I think, look at levels of approval. Well, people who approve, they always say nurses are number one, doctors, pharmacists number two. And then I touch the floor and then they say, okay, Dr. Murphy, you look at where You get where you get. Is it money that you want? Is it people's appreciation that you want? And again, I went from a job with a 99% approval rating to one in politics that's 50% plus or minus one, and that plus or minus one is my wife, whether she's mad at me or not. And so, what are the joys that you get from it, despite the challenges that we face? And so, it is a challenging world. I still would do it all over again. Absolutely do it all over again.
Congressman, eventually you will retire. Eventually, I will probably retire at some point. If we both believe that medicine is a calling, what's the best way to support that calling today so that future generations can see it as a calling, not as a job, and not want to walk away from it?
Yeah. So use that frustration. Use that frustration and become active. And if people want to become, I tell people to be an advocate, not an activist. There's a difference as far as physician. And that's a whole different diatribe because I think medicine has become much too political in the way that we're becoming outside of healthcare. We're dealing with a lot of other issues, environment, climate, this, that, and the other stuff. And you want to do that, fine. But that doesn't have anything to do with medicine. Let's become an advocate for our field. Let's become an advocate for our patients. And to do that means being involved in the political process. We are horrible at being involved in the political process. Go to fundraisers, meet with your representatives, treat them respectfully, but also say, look, this is what's going on, and this is how this is going to affect patient care. I think that's going to be critical. Let's use that energy for a good rather than just complaining.
I just want to thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I DM'd you on LinkedIn and you responded immediately, told me you'd give me some honest answers. I really appreciate you talking with me today. It's been absolutely a pleasure.
Great. No, you'll get straight answers from me, and sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I'm not a very good politician that way. And so you have to say the hard truth sometimes. So,
Congressman, my last question, do you think more physicians should be in Congress?
absolutely. Look, it's a hard job. We last session lost 4 doctors to retirement. And these are smart guys, dedicated guys. Absolutely. This is not an easy job. When people say, well, you voted for this. Well, sometimes there's no maybe button, okay? If you're 55% yes and 45% no, you still got to push yes. And it makes it look like 100%. This is not an easy job. And you get personal attacks. God forbid. We saw 2 legislators, one killed last week, one critically wounded. I've had my own death threats. It's not an easy job. But again, I do it for the future. I have more yesterdays than tomorrows, but I think you have to care more about what the future of the country is and where we can make a difference than your own personal desires and things like that.
Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you for representing physicians and trying to make change so that we can continue to practice medicine. Thanks for joining me today. For interviews with physicians creating meaningful change, check out offcall.com/podcast. You can find How I Doctor on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have new episodes weekly. This has been and continues to be Dr. Graham Walker. Stay well, stay inspired, and practice with purpose. Hey, you just heard a sitting U.S. Congressman say we as doctors need to band together to save our profession. And that's exactly why we built Off Call. At Off Call, we're building a new movement to restore physician autonomy and take back control. And we'd love for you to join us. Sign up today at offcall.com. That's offcall.com. You'll join thousands and thousands of doctors all across the country who are fighting hard for higher physician pay and to bring about transparency and fairness. Once again, sign up at offcall.com. See you there.